All right, good morning. This is the second to the last penultimate Kuleana Community Talk story. And today is something that I love to talk about, and I love to study. As you know, I love to study about conflict and relationships and whatnot. And today's speaker has an abundance amount of knowledge about conflict and conflict resolution. And so the speaker today is Julie Mitchell. She is the executive director of Ikahi Mediation Center. And today we're going to talk about just why conflict is an inevitable yet important thing in relationships and how we resolve it is an important thing for our relationships. So without any further ado, Julie.
Yay. Aloha. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Some of you I know and some of you I don't know. How many of you heard of Kuikahi Mediation Center before? Okay, about half of you and half of you have never heard of us before. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about conflict, and then you all are going to talk a little bit about conflict, listening, and all this kind of good stuff. So Kuikahi Mediation Center, we're a nonprofit community mediation center. We're one of 5 in the state. So here on Hawaii Island, we're lucky to have 2 mediation centers. Kuikahi Mediation Center, we serve the east side, and West Hawaii Mediation Center serves the west side. On Maui and Molokai, they have Maui Mediation Services. On Oahu, they have Mediation Center of the Pacific. And on Kauai, they have Kauai Economic Opportunity Mediation Program. So we were founded back in 1983. We were first a program of the Island of Hawaii YMCA. And in 2006, we launched out on our own and we became our own independent nonprofit organization. So we're celebrating 41 years this year. Our mission is to empower people to come together, to talk and to listen, to explore options, and to find their own best solutions. And to achieve this mission, we offer mediation, facilitation, and training to strengthen the ability of diverse individuals and groups to resolve interpersonal conflicts and community issues. So I'm going to talk about our 3 services because I think you're going to know more about some than the others. Training. This is going to be interactive. What is training? You all know, right? Come on, someone give me an answer. Training. Learning something new, right? Today you can consider this a training, right? So a presentation where we do education. We do education about listening, teamwork, collaboration. For example, over at UCB 127 today, we have the first of 8 in a professional development series with Sylvia Dolina. And if you are a faculty here at Hilo, the school will pay for the first 10 people who register for your workbook. So if you want to sign up for those, oh, you know what? I do have I'll pass this around while I'm talking. If you want to get onto our email list to find out about our free trainings and such, I'll pass this around and you can sign up. It's different than the one that the school put out there. We also do free brown bag lunch series on third Thursdays. So we have one coming up on November 21st with Ann Smoke. And if I would have thought of it, I would have the title of it right on the tip of my tongue. I don't. They're webinars, and you do not have to be able to attend at the time they are offered because we videotape them and we send you the link afterwards. So those happen every month. And we also do trainings like our basic mediation training. That's a 4-day training where we train people how to do the skills that mediators do, because as a nonprofit, we rely on community members like yourself to volunteer for our agency and to help community members solve issues with other community members. That will be coming up in February. So if you get on our email list, you'll find out about all that. We send out about 1 email a week. Facilitation, what's that? Facilitation. Has anyone ever been in a meeting?
Facilitation can be a person that the event that organizes it.
Right, so a facilitator can set up and organize an event, and they can lead a meeting or a public group. Have you ever gone to a private meeting, like at your workplace within your department? Yes? So your boss or the person in charge of your department is usually facilitating the meeting. Have you ever gone to a public meeting, maybe about something a little contentious? Yes? Okay, and who would lead those kind of meetings?
The example I'm thinking of more recently is the island-wide, where all the directors of the county came.
Mhm.
I believe Cyrus was the facilitator for the community to participate.
Absolutely. So when you have small or large groups and you want to discuss something or solve something or listen to people share something, you need somebody who's a facilitator. So that's another thing that we do. So we facilitated like people doing planning meetings. If you remember during the lava flows that were headed towards that overcame Leilani and down below, they had big countywide public meetings, and I came in and I facilitated maybe 3 or so of those to help the meeting go as smoothly as possible and make sure everybody is heard, right? That's the facilitator wants to draw out everyone's good ideas and make sure things are fair, like keeping time and making sure if a lot of people want to talk, you can't let one person speak for 10 minutes when you've got a whole bunch of other people who want to speak. You give everybody maybe 2 minutes. And then we do mediation, okay? So ikahi Mediation Center, that's in our job title. So what's mediation? Take a guess, anybody. This is not like a, I'm not grading you, this is not school. What's mediation?
Helping parties find a resolution.
How? How do mediators help parties find a resolution?
Finding their middle ground.
Finding the middle ground. What do the mediators do? Listen. Excellent. The mediators listen. What else do you think mediators do? Negotiators. Have you ever heard about negotiators? Diplomats, right? These are all similar sort of roles where you have a neutral third party. I mean, a good meeting facilitator should also be a neutral third party, right? They don't have a stake in the game. They're trying to help people who are having issues with one another work things out. Okay, see, what's crazy to me is that most people don't know very much about mediators or what they do, but do you know what a judge does? Probably everyone here knows what a judge does. What do they do? What does the judge do in court? Have you not seen law dramas?
Determine sentencing.
Determine sentences. They hear things, they listen to people and they go, you're right, you're wrong, or you owe this person that much money or whatever, right? They hear the problem, they make a ruling, and they decide what's going to happen. How about arbitrators? Arbitration. You've heard of that, right? If you have a credit card, you've heard of arbitration because it's in every single credit card. Forced arbitration clause, right? What do you know what arbitrators do?
I think it's the back and forth. It's if you're in arbitration, you're trying to come to the agreement.
Yes, you are trying to come to agreement, so it's sort of a little bit between maybe court and a mediation, private mediation, and yet the arbitrator still is going to be the decision maker. It's like they're usually an attorney or a retired judge, and they make a ruling on who's right and who's wrong. It's binding. Okay, so mediation, what I like to talk about mediation is a little bit different. The mediator is not a decision maker. The mediator is helping the parties who are having some kind of conflict talk to each other, listen to each other, hopefully, see each other's perspectives, hear where the other person's coming from, maybe question some of their assumptions, and try to tease out what's most important to people so that they can negotiate and decide, is there some way they can work this out amongst themselves? So as the mediator, when I'm acting as a mediator, I am not making the decision for the people who are having conflicts. I help them to see if they can come up with their own best solutions. Okay, how many of you have never been in a conflict? How many of you have been in a conflict this week? This month? This year? Right? Everyone's been in conflict. Okay, how many of you love conflict? Anybody here? Yeah, sort of, right? There's some people, they love debate, they're competitive, they like to get into it, it juices them up to have some kind of friendly back and forth, right? It can be very invigorating to have that sometimes, especially if it's intellectually stimulating. Other people want to run for the hills, right? Anybody like that in here? Right? You want to run for the hills, bury your head in the sand, don't want to deal with it. And I'll do vast generalization, but here in Hawaii, it tends to be a more conflict avoidant place. Why is that? Why do you think that is? Culture. What kind of culture? Asian. What else? Island. right? Polynesian, communal cultures, right? Where the harmony of the group is more important than the individual. Western cultures, right? I'm number one. I made it to the top all by myself, right? Very individualistic, a little more like this, right? So in places where things are conflict avoidant, does that make the conflict go away? No. What happens?
Probably get worse.
It gets worse. Why? What kind of happens when you're avoiding it?
It just brings it piles up, and
Piles
tiny thing to just
piles up, and that tiny thing explodes it. Or passive aggressive, right? Passive aggressive, right? You don't say anything because the person keeps taking the stapler off the desk. What do? You take the stapler off their desk, right? So most of us don't love conflict, and yet, do you think conflict is normal or abnormal? Normal? Anyone think it's abnormal? I think it's normal. I mean, why do you think conflict's normal? Why do you think conflict happens? All of you said you've gotten into conflict in the last month, and most of you said this week.
We're all different people, different perspectives.
All different kinds of people with all kind of different perspectives. Why else does conflict happen?
To grow, like to evolve. I think conflict is required for systems to evolve sometimes.
Okay, can you say a little bit more about that?
Usually conflict is when something's not going well. And so when you identify what's not going well and can make it right, you can evolve past that. And then usually we come out stronger if that's a successful process.
And are you thinking personal or professional realm or both? Okay.
Husband, and I think of my heart.
Okay, right. Because you're you're also with a nonprofit, right? And you're in your personal relationship. What else do people think about conflict? Why it might happen, and what else it's for?
too many people that all want the same thing.
Too many people, and
All want the same
they all want the same thing. And only one person can have it. So you have a limited resources, and one person gets those resources, and so you're fighting to see who can get there. Okay, what else? Why else does conflict happen?
Misunderstandings and miscommunication.
Misunderstanding and miscommunications. It is so easy to miscommunicate, right? We feel like we're so clear. I feel like I'm clear. And yet I'll look at a text I sent someone, I go, why did they answer that way? And I look back in my original text, I'm like, I see why they answered that way. I thought I was so clear, but they thought I was talking about something else, even with our words too. I might say, I want us to communicate better. Well, what does that mean, communicate? I could be talking about writing. I could be talking about dialogue. I could be talking about, I want you to listen to me when I talk and not say a word. I mean, I could be meaning anything at all. And if you're not able to explore with someone about how and why and what they mean, it's hard to actually resolve things. Who thinks text is a great way to resolve conflicts? How about emails? How about talking through a third party and indirect communication? Depends. How about with the help of somebody? Help of a third party? Yeah, more people are worrying that. How about one-on-one direct communication? Okay, lots of nods on that one. Okay, let's see, where are we here? About 10 more minutes? Okay. So I'm gonna just give you a little sample of what, when we're mediating, if I were your mediator, I'm just gonna do a little sample of what I would do at the beginning of the mediation so you can get a little feeling for it. Because it's hard for people to always be able to talk to each other on their own, right? So that's why we exist. We help people with all different kinds of problems. It can be interpersonal problems, friends, neighbors, um, exes who are co-parenting kids, co-workers, buyers and sellers of goods and services, people who've gotten in auto accidents, real estate transactions, landlord and tenant transactions. I mean, kind of any kind of human experience, we have probably seen it at the Mediation Center. So let me pretend I'm the mediator, and I'll lay out kind of what I say and then how I might start to listen to people and help them resolve things. And I'm just going to show you this because I found that the more I do this for others, the more I can do it in my own life. It's hard. However, you can practice it yourself. The better you get at listening and reflective listening, the better you get at asking curious questions, like I asked Kim to explain more about what she was saying rather than immediately assuming I know what she's saying. The better it is that I am actually able to do this in other areas of my life. I'll give you one example, an intense example. My sister and I were at my mom's celebration of life, and I really needed to talk to her about something. And I brought her outside, and she immediately launched into something, which I didn't want to hear because I need to talk to her, and I need to talk to her now. And I took the biggest breath, like, and I did that like 3 times. Like, I can't really believe she didn't stop because it was so dramatic. But I calmed myself down enough that I could hear her all the way through, and then at the end, I said, "Okay, so what you're saying is X, Y, and Z. Got it? Did I get that right? Yes. Anything else? No. Are you ready to listen?" Yes. And then I was able to tell her what I needed to say. I can't even remember what it was to this day. But I remember that interaction because I had to totally get self-control over myself to not like bite her head off and to actually be able to listen to her in a very stressful experience. Before I was a mediator, I don't think I ever could have done that. I would have just bit her head off. So, as the mediator, what I would do is I would bring the parties together and I would say, "Hi, my name is Julie. I'm going to be your mediator today. My job is to help you folks communicate around this issue that's been hard for you folks. My hope for you today is that you're both going to get a chance to share what's important to you and learn what was important to the other person and get off your chest what's happened in the past. The important thing about mediation is that we cannot change the past. We only can decide what's going to happen from this point forward. So I am going to keep us future forward after you've had a chance to share, so we can take steps to seeing if we can work this out for you folks. I'm not gonna make a decision in your issue. It's your decision to decide. I'm not gonna decide who's right or wrong. I'm not gonna examine evidence or give you advice. I am gonna keep myself out of it. I'm gonna encourage you to think. I'm gonna ask you lots of questions. And hopefully through this discussion today, we'll be able to come up with something. And so how we're going to do it is this. I'm going to meet with you both. I want to hear a little bit from each of you about what brought you here today and what you're hoping to get out of mediation. And then I'll meet with you privately. And then we might do that 1 or 2 times. And then we'll come back together and we'll talk together and we'll see where we're at. And if we have a meeting of the minds where we've negotiated something that you both feel like you can live with, we'll write it up and you'll take that away with you today. Um, Mediation is confidential, so everything that you say here is private. I'm not going to share it with my friends or family members or run up to you if I see you in KTA and say, "Hey, what's going on about that thing?" I'm going to basically act as if I haven't met you before because Hilo is just a pretty small town. We're all agreeing that no audio or visual recordings are allowed, especially because we do a lot of mediations on Zoom these days. And I confirm with them if they're on Zoom. I just want to confirm you're in a private location where no one else can see or hear you. And then I will let them know that there's a few ground rules in mediation. One is we just ask everybody can speak without interruption. 2, you keep an open mind in light of new information that you hear today, that you are open to reassessing your viewpoints. And 3 is just I don't it's fine if there's emotions here, but let's just keep it to a dull roar so nobody comes in from the next room and wonders if we're okay. Y'all can live with those ground rules? And they say yes. And then I confirm that everyone who's here is the decision maker. So if they need to consult with someone who's not there, we need to know in advance. Like if they need to consult with attorney or their spouse or somebody else, like their car insurance agency or something. And then I'll just ask them, okay, so let me see if I can see your name from here. Sarah, tell me a little bit what brought you here today. And she's going to say her whole thing. And then I'm going to give it back to her. Sarah, so what I'm hearing brought you here today is that you're having an issue with your neighbor and they keep throwing their palm fronds over into your yard. It's ruining your garden and you're sick of it. You've tried talking to them and you've started throwing the things back over because you're so pissed off. And then you're going to court because you want to get a restraining order against them to get them to cut it out. Did I get that right? Yes, okay. And so I try to give it very, very simply back to her in a way that she can hear and in a way that my friend over here can hear because he's already heard it from her many times in different tones, but maybe he can hear it from me because I've given it very flat. And then Hayate. Hayate will tell me his perspective. Okay, say Hayate. So what I've heard is that you lived in your house for a really long time. Sarah is a new neighbor. She doesn't understand that there's a lot of palm fronds everywhere and that you just can't control what they are. And you work like 60 hours a week and it's really hard for you to get to the yard work. And you really are not happy with her throwing the things back over. You don't understand why she didn't just talk to you instead of get a restraining order and you're just feeling really bad and you want to work this out. Did I hear that correctly? And so I'm going to give it back to him in the same sort of neutral way so that they both have heard what they are. And then when I meet with them privately, I'm going to give them a chance to like vent, right? Because people need to vent, right? Have you ever tried like somebody comes to talk to you and you start trying to give them advice and they get really pissed off, right? Because they don't want your advice. They say they want your advice, but they don't want your advice. They just need to say it, right? Most people are not heard. They're not listened to very much. They need a space to be heard. So when someone comes with you with a problem, the good thing about this for you is that you can just relax. You don't have to do very much. All you have to do is have a kind listening ear. And then they'll go, and then Sarah, when I meet with her private, she's going to go, "Ba-da-da-da," and ba-da-da-da, and ba 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 ba. And I'm going to go, uh-huh, okay. So ba-da-da-da, and ba-da-da, and ba 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 ba. Okay. And so then what happened? And I'm going to just draw her off till she's kind of calmed down. And then I'm going to go to Hayate and I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, so what you're saying is this, this, and this. And oh my God, she just moved here. She's Howley from the mainland. She doesn't understand local culture. What is wrong with her? My family's been living in this place for generations. What is like, ah? And I'm going to go ba 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 ba. Did I get that right? Okay, and can you tell me a little bit more about the palm fronds? And then I'm gonna start asking them, when I talk to them, I'm gonna start, let's say I go back to Sarah, I'm gonna start asking her curious questions. They're strategic questions, because I'm trying to get her to think, especially if I've heard something a little bit, like, so, you know, you're doing this sort of tit for tat thing. How's that working for you? And I'm not going to do that in a mean way. I'm just going to be, how's that been working for you? Well, not very good, as a matter of fact, because now he's thrown it back and forth, and now we have like a war on the street. Okay, what was your neighbor? What were your neighborly relationships like before this? And she's going to tell me, well, they were actually really good. He brought me over, you know, some beautiful, I don't know, mochi when I first moved in. And, we really had a good time. And then this thing just eroded our relationship. Okay, so how would you like your relationship to be going forward? So I'm trying to get her to think it out. And I'm going to go to Hayate. Hayate, how's it been going with this thing? And I'm going to ask strategic questions, curious questions about what I've been hearing. And then I'm going to help them brainstorm. So brainstorming solutions. So, okay, so it sounds like you both would like these neighborly relations to be restored. What ideas do you have to do that? And I might write things up. Okay. Okay. What do you want to do about this palm frond issue? And then Hayate might be like, well, I've been meaning to hire a gardener for years, and I think this will be the thing that just gets me to do it. Oh, and Sarah's going to say, that'll be great. I'm really sorry that happened. And hopefully they'll apologize and we'll write up what's going to happen. So the tools I'm using to de-escalate the situation, number one, listening. Number two, giving them the space and respect to unload. Three, using reflective listening, saying back what I've heard so they feel like I understand them. And after I've done that, I'm quiet again because they're probably going to tell me more. I'm going to ask really curious questions to get more information, and I'm going to help them brainstorm what ideas they have to resolve the issue. You kind of get the picture? That's a basic idea of it. I think I'm probably around at time. Okay. So so the idea behind, I think conflict prevention and resolution is you're trying to use communication to de-escalate a situation. So you can do this before it escalates too far, but Sarah has already filed a restraining order against Hayate in court. That's escalating it. And this is what also happens when there's a lot of conflict avoidance, right? You don't deal with it and nip it in the bud. And then you take the nuclear option. You post some nasty thing on Facebook that gets shared like 10,000 times, or you file in court. And then what happens is something that was down here has suddenly amped up to here. And what is this person going to respond? They're going to amp it up to here. So Hayate might find a counter restraining order against here. Now we've got 2 lawsuits in court. So the idea is before that happens, if you can communicate directly with the person, or get somebody to help you. Maybe Sarah's partner at home is a calmer person and might be the more strategic person to have the conversation with Hayate. Or maybe there's a neighbor, a friendly neighbor, or a clergy person, or a kapuna or someone who might help them have a conversation. So you can enlist the help of outside individuals, just like parents might do that for their children, right? For their siblings, the siblings. Or you can come to a place like ikahi Mediation Center where we help people, or you can just try to go to the person directly. The hardest thing about that, right, is you're amped up, right? When you're amped up, it is hard to have that kind of conversation because you feel yourself revving up. Like when I was talking about that thing with my sister, I could feel my vibratory level is like, I just wanted to be like, shut up. And that's why I had to do those like to that level to try to get myself to calm myself down so I could even be there with her. So there's lots of things you can do. You can take a break saying, oh, I feel myself getting agitated. Could we come back to this in 5 minutes? Maybe we could walk and talk. I know some therapists do that now, but couples do that. Like they're angry. Let's do a walk and talk. Let's walk because, doing something physical could be helpful. Or you could be like, you know what, let's talk about this tomorrow. How about if we both go journal our feelings out? Because sometimes the next day, after you've journaled it, you're both kind of resolved on what happened. You can go away and think about it, or you can sit down and talk to each other. You're both very good at listening and reflecting back. You can take turns, make sure people have an equal time. There's lots of different strategies you can do when you're having conflict. When it does escalate, right? When it gets hotter, that's where you have to be careful, right? Who here has said things that they wish they had never said, right? Probably all of us have said things that we wish we never said. We've done things we wish we never said. I mean, it's just hard not to do that. We're all human beings. We can apologize later, but certain words can't be unheard. Certain emails can't be unsent. You can delete your text on your end, but the other person still has it. Or they took a screenshot of it, even if you've deleted it from your social. So it's kind of like thinking before you speak if you can. Another way is if you have another person, before you send the email or the letter or the text, you can ask a trusted person, can you read this and tell me how the tone is? And sometimes they're like, sounds kind of mean, or you sound like you're really angry, or they can give you some gentle feedback. So a lot of times for those things, sleeping on it is a good idea. And we'll talk about some other things I think in our group discussion. So basically, in mediation, our job is to see if people can talk and listen to each other and see where they're at. Does it always work? No, works more than half the time. Even if we come back together and we say, okay, so Sarah, it sounds like, you're not sure if you want to drop the court case. Hayate, you are thinking about still filing this counterclaim and you're not sure if you want to do it or not. How can I help you figure out what your next steps are going forward? Is there anything you want to say directly to each other that might help the situation? I'll tell you, if one person even makes a move towards apology or regret, it does the opposite of amping it up. One person says, "I'm really sorry that I said that. That was not a nice thing to say. Well, I really appreciate when I moved in that you brought me those delicious mochi. Well, maybe there is some way we can work this out." If someone makes some kind of human connection or a concession or some expression of regret or apology, it usually can start de-escalating it. It has to be sincere, it can't be fake, but you can almost feel it in the room when this happens. People start feeling calmer, their ands are not so high. And when that happens, it's like people can actually start thinking. It's very hard to solve problems like a conflict if you can't think, if you're just feeling, like if you're a bundle of emotions. Which we all get them. It's okay to have our emotions. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to upset. It's okay to get in conflict. It's okay to say mean things. I try to say fewer and fewer the older I get because I know how impactful they can be. And yet, am I always perfect? No. And then I have to go back and say, oh, I was really cranky yesterday, folks. Like to my office, I was very cranky yesterday. I realized I was starting to get a cold and I was very short with you all. Please forgive me. Today I'm not at my best either. So if I'm a little spaced out, that's why you'll know what's going on. That was another thing for conflict prevention, disclosure. A transparency, I think, can be very helpful in conflict prevention, is you let people know what's going on for you. So if you're not having a good day, you don't have to say why, or if somebody, something happened that is hard for you, you can say, my mental health is not good today. If I'm not as upbeat as I normally am, or if I'm not as responsive, just know that it's not anything you're doing. It's just something I'm going through right now. People can be very forgiving when that happens. And then it lets them know a little bit about what's going on for them, because most people, we take things personally, right? I mean, it's crazy because we're all I think we're all the sun in the center of our universes, right? We all think that what's going on for us is the most important thing. And then we interpret what somebody else is doing as about us, when oftentimes it doesn't have anything to do with us, right? It's just about them. And that can cause a lot of conflict too. So you can do a check-in with someone. Hey, I noticed you were a little short when we were talking this morning. Are we okay? Oh, it had nothing to do with you. My kids were late to school and this and that. No, actually, I didn't like how our conversation the other day went, and I realized I was feeling very closed off to you. So checking in with people to find out, was it about you? Was it not about you? Okay, so I think we have some fun. Yeah, yeah, she's like, now see, I'll tell you something too about these solutions. I can never predict what is going to happen in mediation. I always think if I start thinking I know what's going to happen or it's going to resolve or not, I've just become biased, right? And my job is to be neutral. So what might have come out of this is like, Sarah says, you know what? I actually started a farm and I could use all those palm fronds for my mulching. Could you actually not get a gardener and instead pile them here and I'll use them all? I mean, the most creative solutions have come up, but I could never imagine them in a million years because it's not my issue and it's not my conflict.
Thank you.